ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामे। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण। Okay. Teachings of Queen Kunti, Chapter 11. The touch of superior energy. Manye tvam kalamīshanam anādi nidanam vibhum samam charantam sarvatra bhutanam yanmitah kalihi. My Lord, I consider your Lordship to be eternal time, the supreme controller without beginning and end, the all-pervasive one. In distributing your mercy, you are equal to everyone. The dissensions between living beings are due to social intercourse. Dissension means disagreement, conflict, like that. Between living beings are due to social intercourse. Kunti Devi knew that Krishna was neither her nephew nor an ordinary family member of her parental house. She knew perfectly well that Krishna is the primeval Lord who lives in everyone's heart as a super soul, Paramatma. Another name of the Paramatma feature of the Lord is Kala, or eternal time. Eternal time is the witness of all our actions, good and bad, and the resultant reactions are destined by Him. It is no use saying that we do not know why we are suffering. We may forget the misdeed for which we may suffer at this present moment, but we must remember that Paramatma is our constant companion, and therefore He knows everything past, present, and future. And because the Paramatma feature of the Lord Krishna destines all actions and reactions, He is the supreme controller also. So within this material world, Paramatma is the supreme, right? Because He destines all actions, reactions. He is the supreme controller. Without his sanction, not a blade of grass can move. Tena vina trinamapi na chalati. So without the sanction of Paramatma, nothing can move. The living beings are given as much freedom as they deserve. And misuse of that freedom is the cause of suffering. So this is very important. So I have a question. Can somebody tell how to, I mean, when are we using our freedom? How do we know, or how do I put it? Like, so there are two things that keep happening, right? One is um, we are experiencing reactions from past life, and then we are also using freedom to create new karma. So has anybody thought about how do we make this distinction? I mean, is this my suffering, or is this new karma that I'm creating, new karma phala that I'm creating? You got the question, right? So we have freedom and we misuse the freedom. So, or the other way of putting it is, when what opportunities are given for us to use or misuse our freedom, or how do we recognize those opportunities? I mean, the whole idea is to prevent the misuse of freedom, right? So if we know that I'm misusing my freedom here, I can try to prevent it. But for that, I have to first be able to recognize that I'm misusing the freedom. So how do I
Yeah.
recognize
Prabhuji,
that?
this is Nayak.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so I wanted to say something here about this instance. So basically, the freedom, whatever we get, right? By default, everyone, every human being, or every species will have freedom by the grace of God, and repeatedly we use it or misuse it. That is up to individual. But The realization of misusing, we will come to know only when we go through some suffering. For example, if you are supposed to, any human being, they are not supposed to eat, or they are not supposed to take something not good for their health, whether it is mental health or physical health or something. And if you go through that repeatedly with your freedom, and ultimately you realize something went wrong with you, or maybe, you know, because of that freedom which you have misused it. So that is when you realize that, this was not supposed to be misused, though it is a freedom which we all get as a by default.
Okay.
So until and unless a human, or at least they have to hear from someone, okay, if you do this, this is what going to happen, or
Mm.
maybe some the listening, or maybe self experience. Especially self experience will make you much more matured, and also in terms of realization that you have been misusing the freedom which you received. So that way, I think that is how I would like to portray it based on
Okay.
my own experience as well.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Any thoughts? Okay, let me try to explain this. See, basically, in our life, we have to suffer or enjoy karma phala, right? So, how does this karma phala come to us? The karma phala comes to us through adhyatmika, adibhautika, adidaivika, right? So, through other jivas, through our mind and body, and through material nature. Now, sometimes we would have seen in our life saying that without a possible material trigger, without any kind of material trigger, something just happens. And normally people are always very busy trying to find out the immediate material cause, but we may or may not be able to find the material cause, because sometimes the material cause might manifest, sometimes it might not manifest. A karma phala will manifest and we will end up experiencing it. So for example, somebody had a bad exchange with another person. Now, if it got triggered without us doing anything, meaning we didn't say anything, just somebody just came and started shouting at us, right? Now, mostly this is a result of previous karma phala, right? But then what we do at that point of time, how we react at that point of time, could be this is not very easy to say. So I'm saying, because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that this whole karma is very guhyam, is very difficult to, it's a mystery, very difficult to understand. But how we react at that point of time could be a display of our freedom, right? So either we can shout back at that individual, or we can maybe just be submissive and just hear it out. It is difficult to say because our reaction might also be part of our karma phala. It's very difficult to say, meaning how we react in that situation could also be driven by our karma phala. But we should understand, so to be safe, what should we do? Because we don't know whether it's a result of past karma phala or whether we are creating new karma. It's safe always to follow Shastra, right? And Shastra says, like, yeah, if Pranadapi Sunichena Taroropi Saishnuna Manina Manadina, if somebody shouting at us, don't react. It's safer, even if by chance we are creating new karma phala, we can prevent it. So it's very difficult to identify where we are using our freedom, where we are actually, it's a result of previous karma phala. But generally, we can think of it as something being thrust on us is a result of karma phala. Situations where, say, I have an option whether I have to go to the temple or I have to go to the mall, that's an option, right? It could be an expression of freedom. It could be an expression of freedom. But the important thing is to understand that it's very difficult to distinguish, identify this, and thereby we have to be very careful, because every misuse of freedom results in suffering. right? So these are all very complex things. But here, Prabhupada is saying devotees of the Lord do not misuse their freedom and therefore they're good sons of the Lord. Like I said, so what do devotees do? They always try to do whatever is required to for the pleasure of the Lord. So that is the proper use of freedom, irrespective of what the material situation is, irrespective of what was thrust upon them. They will just never do anything which is not in connection with the Lord, right? Which is not favorable for the pleasure of the Lord, and thereby they will not misuse their freedom. Others who misuse freedom here could also mean for their own stake, for their own, um, yeah, like sense gratification, or for their own sake. Those who use their freedom, they are put into miseries, destined by eternal Kala. The Kala offers the conditioned souls both happiness and distress. It is all predestined by eternal time. This also is very difficult for people to understand and accept, right? So they can't understand. Saying if you say that everything major happenings in your life is predestined, you say, no, no, this is all like uh, just some blind beliefs. As we have miseries uncalled for, so we may have happiness also without being asked for. For they're all predestined by Kala. No one is therefore either an enemy or a friend of the Lord. Everyone is suffering and enjoying the result of his own destiny. Because people say, why, Krishna, why did you do this to me? So Prabhupada is saying, no, everyone is suffering and enjoying the result of his own destiny. This destiny is made by the living beings in course of social intercourse. Social intercourse, meaning engaging with other people, engaging with society, etc. We have created our own destiny. Everyone here wants to lord it over material nature, and thus everyone creates his own destiny under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. Because the problem is we want to lord it over material nature. We want to be the lords. Supreme Lord is all pervading and therefore he can see everyone's activities. And because the Lord has no beginning or end, he is also known as the eternal Kala. What is explained herein by the devoted Kunti is exactly confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita. Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dveshosti na priyaha ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya mai te teshu chapyaham. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But one who renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. God cannot be partial. Everyone is God's son. So how can God favor one son above another? That is not possible. But human beings discriminate. Be right. In God we trust. But one who trusts in God must be equally kind and merciful toward all living beings. That is God consciousness. So Prabhupada is saying we discriminate. Krishna doesn't discriminate. We discriminate. And this discrimination is also based on just our wanting to lord it over material nature. Krishna says, I have no enemies, nor have I friends. Name dveshosti na priyaha. The word dveshya means enemy. We are envious of our enemies and friendly towards our friends. But Krishna is absolute. Even when he appears to be inimical towards some demon, he is actually a friend. When Krishna kills a demon, the demon's demonic activities are killed and immediately becomes a saint and merges into the supreme effort, impersonal effulgence, Brahma Jyoti. So for a demon merges into Brahman, right? So who can be more merciful? So he is always a friend. He is not even an enemy of his so-called enemy, right? So how can he be inimical to anybody? So we should never, look at life situations and complain to Krishna, saying that Krishna, why are you doing this? He will never do anything bad for us. The Brahmajyoti is one of the three features of the absolute truth. Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. The absolute truth is one, but is perceived in three features known as Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. The original complete feature of the absolute truth is Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his plenary representation is Paramatma, Hirodakashai Vishnu, who is situated in everyone's heart. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hriddesha Arjuna Tishtati. That third feature of the absolute truth is Brahman, the all-pervading impersonal effulgence of the absolute. We know all this. The absolute truth is equal to everyone, but one will realize the absolute according to the way one approaches him. Ye yatha mam prapadyante. So this is very, very important. How we approach him, to that In that way, we will realize him. According to one's capacity for understanding, the absolute truth is revealed either as the impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, or ultimately as Bhagavan. See, this is our capacity of understanding. So some people don't have capacity of understanding; they can't go beyond Brahman. So we should not like trivialize them or belittle them or yeah, that is their capacity. It's fine. We can give them an opportunity to come to Bhagavan, right? But they might not want to because that's their capacity. Somebody might be just limited to Paramatma, and very few fortunate souls will come to Bhagavan. To explain this by an example, we may sometimes see hills from our room, although we may not see them distinctly. In Los Angeles, there are many hills, but when we see the hills from a distant place, they look like something cloudy. However, if we go further toward a hill, we shall find that there is something distinct, a hill. And if you go all the way to the hill itself, we shall find many people working there, many houses, streets, cars, and so many varied things. Similarly, when one wants to know the absolute truth by one's tiny brain and thinks, I shall conduct research to find the absolute truth, one will have a vague, impersonal idea. Then, if one goes further and becomes a meditator, one will find the God is situated within one's heart. Dhyanavastita tadgatena manasa pashyantiyam yogina. Yogis, real yogis, see the form of Vishnu within the heart by meditation. The devotees, however, meet the Supreme Person face to face, just as we meet face to face and speak face to face. The Supreme Person of Godhead orders, supply me this, and the devotee directly serves the Lord by supplying what he wants. Thus, there are different realizations of the absolute truth, and although he is equal to everyone, it is up to us to understand him according to our advancement. Therefore, Kunti says, Samam charantam sarvatra. In distributing your mercy, you're equal to everyone. He is distributing mercy equally to everyone, but we are not receiving mercy. And this, what does this mercy mean? How does one get mercy? By following instructions. Mercy means following instructions. Because we follow instructions, the mercy will flow. That's all. It's so simple. But we want mercy without following instructions. You're lazy. The word charantam means moving. The Lord moves everywhere, within and without, and we simply have to make our vision clear so that we may see Him. So Lord is present everywhere. He's moving everywhere. By devotional service, we can purify our senses so that we may perceive the presence of God. Those who are less intelligent simply try to find God within, but those who are advanced in intelligence can see the Lord both within and without. It's not an exaggeration to say we can see the Lord outside, meaning face to face. It's the perfection of bhakti. Those who don't want to believe, that is their level of surrender. That is how much they can understand Krishna, and that's all they'll get. The yogic system of meditation is actually meant for those who are less intelligent. One who practice meditation in yoga must control the senses. Yoga indriya samyamaha. Our senses are very restless, and by practicing the different asanas or sitting postures, one must control the mind and senses so that one can concentrate upon the form of Vishnu within the heart. This is the yoga system recommended for those who are too absorbed in the bodily concept of life. See, yoga, this Ashtanga yoga is for those who are absorbed in the bodily concept of life. However, because bhaktas, devotees are more advanced, they do not need to undergo a separate process to control their senses. Rather, by engaging in devotional service, they're already controlling the senses. So the important part is how much time we are engaging our senses in bhakti. So bhakta devotee means 24 hours he is using his senses in Krishna's service. Thereby 24 hours his senses are controlled because he doesn't have an option to use it for anything else because he's engaging 24 hours in devotional service. But if we are doing bhakti for 2 hours and 22 hours we are living material kind of life, then obviously we will be faced with this challenge of controlling our senses. And of course, I mean, even if we are doing 24 hours, there's always chances that our previous vasanas, our karma pala lingering in the depths of our consciousness will suddenly come to the surface, and and our senses will get agitated. But that will go, because that is not, that we are not putting fire, we are not putting ghee into the fire, right? Meaning we are not fueling our senses. So these intermittent kind of um, agitation by the senses will stop as long as we are trying to use our senses 24 hours in Krishna's service. Then we don't need any other way of controlling. Otherwise, we should exercise control, because otherwise senses will just go crazy. And that is the reason why we have rules and regulations in bhakti. Rules and regulations are for those who are not necessarily living a devotional life, meaning they're engaging in activities which are non devotional. So, to control or direct their how they can use their senses in those situations, there are certain rules. So, for example, somebody is working outside, okay, don't interact too much or don't get absorbed in conversations with non devotees. Don't you eat non prasadam. These are all directions, these are all guidance, so that because we are in situation which is not directly bhakti, we can still protect ourselves. For example, if one is engaged in worshipping the deity, cleansing the temple, decorating the deity, cooking for the deity, and so on, one's senses are always already engaged in the service of the absolute truth. So where is the chance of their being diverted? Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. Bhakti, devotional service, simply means engaging our senses in the service of the master of the senses, Rishika. Rishika and Rishikesha. Now our senses are engaged in sense gratification. I'm thinking that because I am this body, I must satisfy my senses. In fact, however, this is a contaminated stage of life. When one comes to the understanding that he is not the body but a spirit soul, part and parcel of God, he knows that his spiritual senses should be engaged in the service of the supreme spiritual being. Thus one attains liberation, mukti. One attains liberation when one gives up the false idea that the body is the self, and when one resumes his actual position of service of the Lord. So mukti doesn't mean giving up this body. Mukti just means giving up the material bodily conception of life. Muktir hitva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavastitihi. Um, that means giving up this false idea that body is the self. This is mukti. Because when we give up this false idea, we automatically engage in the service of the Lord. Till we think that I am this body, I want to work for the body. Right? When we give up this false idea, then we'll stop working for the body. We'll start working for Krishna. When we are conditioned, we give up our original constitutional position. When we are conditioned, meaning we come into this material world, we are all conditioned, so we've forgotten our original constitutional position, which is to be servants of Krishna, which is described by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as being that of eternal service to Krishna. Jiver Swarupoy Krishna Nityadas. But as soon as we employ ourselves in the service of the Lord, we are liberated immediately. There's no need to pass through some preliminary process. The very act of engaging one's senses in the service of Lord is evidence that one is liberated. So fully, I mean, full liberation, meaning giving up completely this false idea of that body is self. Liberation is open for everyone. Samam charantam. Bhagavad Gita Krishna does not say to Arjuna, only you may come to me and become liberated. No, the Lord is available for everyone. When he says Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Raja, give up all other duties and surrender to me, he's speaking not only to Arjuna but to everyone. Arjuna was the original target, but in fact, Bhagavad Gita was spoken for everyone, for all human beings, and therefore one must take advantage of it. Krishna's impartiality is compared to that of the sun. The sun does not consider, here is a poor man, here is a low class man, here is a hog. I shall not distribute my sunshine to them. No, sun is equal toward all, and one simply has to take advantage of it. The sunshine is available. But if we close our doors and want to keep ourselves in darkness, that is our decision. Similarly, Krishna is everywhere. Krishna is for everyone, and Krishna is ready to accept us as soon as we surrender. Samam charantam. There is no restriction. People may make a distinction between lower class and higher class, but Krishna says, Mam hi partha vyapashritya yepisyu papa yonaya. Even though one may supposedly be low of a lower class, that doesn't matter. If he surrenders to me, he is also eligible to come back home, back to Godhead. So it's a very clear indication that we should just surrender. Krishna will accept our surrender, whoever, whatever be our position. There's no restriction. But the thing is, we don't want the sunshine. We are locking ourselves inside. We don't want the mercy of Krishna. So we don't follow, we don't surrender. The same Krishna is described by Kunti Devi as eternal time. Everything takes place within time. But our time calculations of past, present, and future are relative. A small insect's measurement of past, present, and future is different from our past, present, and future. And similarly, the past, present, and future of Brahma, the chief creative living being within this universe, are different from ours. But Krishna has no past, present, and future. Therefore, he is eternal. We have a past, present, and future because we change from one body to another. The body we now have is dated. At a certain date, I was born of my father and mother, and now this body will stay for some time. It will grow, it will produce some byproducts. Then it will become old and dwindle and then vanish. And then I shall have to accept another body. When the past, present, and future of my present body are finished, I shall accept another body, and again my past, present, and future will begin of that body. But Krishna has no past, present, or future because he does not change his body. That is the difference between ourselves and Krishna. The eternal portion of Krishna is revealed in Bhagavad Gita. There Krishna said to Arjuna, in past millions of years ago, I spoke this philosophy of Bhagavad Gita to the sun god. Arjuna appeared not to believe this. Of course, Arjuna knew everything, but for our education, he said to Krishna, Krishna, we are contemporaries, and since we were born at practically the same time, how can I believe that you spoke this philosophy so long ago to the sun god? Then Krishna replied, my dear Arjuna, you were also present then, but you've forgotten, whereas I have not. That is the difference. Past, present, and future pertain to persons who forget. But for one who does not forget, who lives eternally, there is no past, present, or future. Kunti therefore addresses Krishna as eternal, Manye Tvam Kalam. And because he is eternal, he is the full controller, Ishanam. By Krishna's extraordinary power, Kunti could understand that Krishna is eternal and that Krishna is the supreme controller. He has no beginning and no end, Anadi Nidhanam. And therefore he is Vibhu, the supreme, the greatest. We are Anu, the smallest, and Krishna is Vibhu, the greatest. We are part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore Krishna is both the smallest and the greatest, whereas we are only the smallest. Vibhu, the greatest, must be all inclusive. If one has a large bag, one can hold many things, whereas in a small bag, one cannot. Because Krishna is Vibhu, the greatest, he includes everything, even past, present, and future time, and he is the all pervading present everywhere. Without Krishna, matter cannot develop. Atheistic scientists say that life comes from matter, but that is nonsense. Matter is one energy of Krishna, and spirit is another. The spirit is superior energy, and matter is inferior energy. Matter develops when superior energy is present. For example, 200 or 300 years ago, the land of America was not developed. But because some superior living entities from Europe came here, America is now very much developed. Therefore, the cause of development is the superior energy. In Africa, Australia, and many other places, there is still vacant land that is undeveloped. Why is it undeveloped? Because the superior energy of advanced living entities has not touched it. As soon as the superior energy touches it, the same land will develop so many factories, houses, cities, roads, cars, and so on. The point of this example is that matter cannot develop by itself. That is not possible. Superior energy must touch it and then it will be active. To give another example, a machine is matter, it is inferior energy. And therefore, unless an operator comes to touch the machine, it will not act. One may have a very costly car, but unless a driver comes in millions of years, it will never go anywhere. Thus, it is common sense to understand that matter cannot work independently. It cannot work unless the superior energy, the living entity, touches it. So, how can we conclude that life develops from matter? Rascal scientists may say this, but they do not have sufficient knowledge. All the universes have developed because of Krishna's presence, as mentioned in Brahma Samhita. Andantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham. The scientists are now studying atoms and they're finding that electrons, protons, and other particles act in so many ways. Why are these particles active? Because Krishna is present there. This is real scientific understanding. One should scientifically understand Krishna. Krishna has no past, present, and future. is eternal time with no beginning and no end, and he is equal to everyone. We simply have to prepare ourselves to see Krishna and understand Krishna. That is the purpose of Krishna consciousness. See, the whole idea why such verses glorifying Krishna's supreme position hmm, is for us to understand our real situation, our real position, right? So Krishna is eternal time. So whatever is happening in our life of a devotee is all controlled by him. He is the supreme controller. Nothing will happen without his sanction. Hmm. And he's all pervasive. We should not think that, oh, how Krishna will know what I am or what I am thinking. No, he is present everywhere. And Krishna is distributing his mercy equally to everyone. So we should never say, oh, I am not getting mercy, that person is getting mercy. Like I said, getting mercy simply means to how much extent we want to follow instructions. The more we follow instructions, the more mercy we will get. It's directly correlated, right? And whatever sufferings, happiness, whatever you're experiencing is just because of social intercourse, because of our karma that we are doing. So the idea is that we should always recognize Krishna's position, Krishna's hands. We should recognize his hands in our life and know that whatever I am suffering is my own karma. Whatever happiness I'm getting is his mercy, and I should not misuse my freedom. In all situations, I should be conscious of him. In all situations, I should try to serve him. I should stop this sense gratification business because that is only going to result in suffering. So we have to be conscious of Krishna. We have to be conscious of the touch of his superior energy in all aspects of our life. Okay, so I'll stop here if anybody wants to make any comments. It was a pretty straightforward purport, I thought, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Actually, my question is what is the impersonal Brahman concept? Can you please explain in short?
Yeah, impersonal Brahman is the light or effulgence coming from the body of Krishna. So Krishna is in Goloka and Krishna is effulgent, self-effulgent, right? All light is coming from Krishna. So that effulgence, that bodily glow, as we call it, that effulgence is spread throughout the creation, all of spiritual and material world also, but I'll come to that. So this effulgence is everywhere and it is called Brahma Jyoti. Jyoti means light. Brahma, because it is coming from Brahman, Krishna, so it is called Brahma Jyoti. Now the whole spiritual world is also present in this Brahma Jyoti. Meaning Brahma Jyoti is like the sky, you can think. It's also called Paravyoma, but it's also effulgence. It's not just a sky or space means we just think it's a place where something is held. But Brahma Jyoti is actually the light coming from Krishna's body. And all the spiritual universes, Vaikuntha, everything is present in this light. Okay. Now this Brahma Jyoti, when it comes to the material universes, because of the Mahatattva cloud, which is a cloud of ignorance, by Krishna's will, the Brahma Jyoti doesn't penetrate through this Mahatattva cloud. So the Brahma Jyoti actually doesn't enter the material universes. Otherwise, the Brahma Jyoti is everywhere. And the Gyanis who want to perfect their life, they want to merge into this Brahma Jyoti. They want to become one with this Brahma Jyoti. Of course, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami says that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that there are two types of merging. One is merging into Brahma Jyoti, the other is merging into the form of Lord only. That merging into form of Lord is even worse. So normally we talk about merging into Brahma Jyoti. And what happens when one merges into Brahma Jyoti? He is just one speck of light. Like, if at this point of time, if there is some sunlight coming into your room, you can see it's called hex atoms, like small, small particles in the, through the window. You can see those particles, right, of sunshine. So it will be like that. So we will become one of that particle there in that sunshine. That's all. That is merging into Brahman. So it's just that light coming out from the body of Krishna. That is Brahma.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Please read Prabhupada's books. Everything is given. All of this is given. If you read Bhagavad Gita only to a great extent, we'll get this knowledge. Then definitely Bhagavatam. We have to simply keep reading Prabhupada's books, then we will get all knowledge. Okay, anything else? Okay, fine. We'll stop here. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyashta kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah ananta koti vaishnavebhyo ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thanks.
Hare Krishna.